take note, this mainly includes tanks from Arasio that are not from Diepio, but it will include a few tanks originally from Diepio if they have had enough significance to the game and changes to the tank. That is all. And now, in no particular order, let's begin. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we witness the Mega Return, the one, the only, the Mega Smash. The tank that was sadly removed in GPU in 2016, and now it's back in full force in Arasio. It's just as good and just as powerful as it was back then. After all the amount of mourning and despair, the tank is back home, and what a crazy tank it is. A welcome return to everyone who made this tank. A welcome return to the Mega Smasher. Engineer. This is a nightmare for many tanks that cannot defend themselves. Your sole purpose is to annoy the crap out of everyone. You don't even care if you win. You only want to prolong the suffering. You are feared, and in turn makes you hated. You don't care though, and you just prefer spamming auto traps for your own sick and sadistic pleasure. Auto Triangle. This auto turret is what makes you great. Without it, you're just a triangle. Placing auto turrets on everything is really just a gimmick, and that's what you are. A gimmick. You want to be something, but nobody takes you seriously. It's like you try to be a fighter or a surfer, but you have no extra barrels to be such a tank. Go take a long, hard look in the mirror before you come back. Triplet. Your main existence is to out-penetrate most tanks with your powerful bullets, provided if you can use them properly. Being the average tank that you are, you have noticed some changes, and the changes you received make you a significant force in battle. Annihilator. Why are you still trying to ram with this tank? Do you not understand that it's not powerful here? Why not turn from an angry fool into a tank with a destructive ball of death? What's wrong with you? Live to your full potential instead of trying to play in the same way you always do. Ordnance. What is an ordnance? Are you a newcomer? Why do you exist? Many questions are to be raised about you, but you are here, and that is all. Welcome to hell. You won't like it. Hexa Tank. For a tank that is not the highest upgrade, it can surprisingly be a decent tank. No one really uses it properly and decides to ram players instead just for fun, but generally know how to have some fun in a game. Barricade. Once in your lifetime you will have made a meme or a joke about building a wall or barricade and making the Overlord pay for it. Just like your best friend, the Mega Trapper. You honour his untimely passing here and continue his legacy. Your traps are a nightmare to deal with, especially when you use the high bullet speed, and for some reason you are incredibly fast. A Streamliner in trap form, you work in two ways. You can either dominate the entire server or get dominated by the entire server. It's a 50-50 hit and miss situation for you. Perhaps you should focus more on the game instead of making memes about building a wall. Landmine. You got what you wanted. You now take roughly 4 seconds to become invisible. The thing is here, you have become a legitimate threat. You serve your purpose well. However, if you continue to complain about Landmine, your problem is you expect too much. Now use the tank like it's intended and don't complain again. Banshee. If your goal was to scare your opponent into submission like a real Banshee does, you have undeniably failed. If you didn't have drones, you would be meat to everyone. Those bullets are almost useless. Can you even aim properly? People see through your hard shell. I said that ironically, as you had no shell in the first place. I Banshee you from the game. Ha 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 ha. Underseer. I can see why Necromancer was renamed to Underseer, because the tank was very underwhelming, and that is how people see you. Underwhelming. You perform terribly. Even though you spawn a random square occasionally, it is not enough to save you. Artillery. This isn't even an artillery, it's basically a spread shot that has 8 missing barrels. Maybe it was for the better, because for some reason you are incredibly powerful. Or you were powerful. You got downgraded and now you have become a sweaty tryhard that wishes it never got nerfed. There's a reason for everything. Don't become a bitch like Annihilator. You are better than that. Hewn double. You can play in 2 particular ways, normally, or like a tank in the triangle branch. Either way, you're garbage. The main thing good about you is the theoretical idea that you could be good, and someday, you will be. Auto 4. Auto 5 may be the underrated tank, but you. What are you? What is this abomination? Perhaps you are not to be underestimated either, but you are still inferior to your counterpart, just by a little. Perhaps you wish to duel the Auto 5, just to see which is better. You are still a threat, unlike Auto 3, which no longer exists because you killed it. Single. But what if you're taken? This is the upgrade to tank? It looks like a ranger with its barrel sawed off. Maybe some choose this because they're unoriginal, or because they're single, or both. Ha! Pathetic! Builder. Can you fix it? No, you can't! Director. Some lower tier upgrades are useful. This is one of them, despite fewer drones. At least there's a real upgrade to Manager, except clinging onto Overseer like a baby. One of those tanks that think using this is a challenge. They're wrong. This is also not a movie. This is real life. Stop thinking you're a big shot. Overlord. You cannot choose whether to use the drones or the guns at full force. Sometimes you wish it had more of something. But you can't have everything in life, can you? This includes a rare seal. Work with what you've got, instead of crying about it. All you're doing is confusing yourself. Would you like a shotgun blast to the face? This is what a real tank upgrade should look like. Not the single tank. You shoot 9 bullets incredibly fast. You are able to master the ambush like a hybrid or Annihilator. You feel incredibly balanced, but you are also infamous. You rely heavily on the ambush. Without it, you're in danger. However, most of the time it's your fault. Your 9 bullets are not stronger than a destroyer bullet. Stop thinking this. That is your downfall. Arrogance. Auto Overseer. Someone thought it was a good idea to stick an auto gun on everything. At least Overseer is one of them. At least on an Overseer, it makes sense compared to the other upgrades. However, it still belongs in the most infamous class possible. So how can this be given a positive review? Carrier. What are your drones really? A killing machine? Or an awful attempt to replicate Battleship? Perhaps it was for the better. You are a hunter to many tanks, and deep down inside you are always angry. Perhaps you could make friends with Autogunner. They also hate everyone. It'll be the only friend you'll ever have. Bomber! You often think this tank is blistering fast. However, you are disappointed. Out of the 4 major triangle tanks, you are generally the weakest. But that doesn't make you bad. You are the least annoying out of the main 4 in this branch. Someday, you'll get your revenge by killing all of your brethren and taking the throne for yourself before destroying it all in a fit of rage. Swarmer. Frustrating smaller bullets, weak larger bullets. You like to crowd control the server or completely block off maze sections in team mode. Surprisingly versatile for what it is. Too bad you are not as strong as you think you are. Overdrive. Turrets on drones look good on paper, and perhaps they are useful. This is one of the better upgrades to Overseer or Director. One thing you may notice is that other auto turrets will target your drones. That's all that can be said about you. Carry on being a nuisance to everyone else. Fortress. One of the few solid tanks, if you know what I mean. A fortress is supposed to be tough and durable. This could be durable if the pairing of traps and battleship drones weren't a thing. You play more defensive than offensive. As the name suggests, you are rather slow. You better make sure you prepare for battering rams. Okay, Boomer! Somewhere down the line, you mock the young like a real boomer. Even though the mentality of an actual boomer is laughable, you are not. Your traps are unpredictable, unique, and actually quite powerful. It's like if Yoda piloted a starship or for some reason piloted a random Arasio tank that he has somehow mastered. Other builder tanks are jealous of your skills. It's no wonder you make fun of Generation Z. You make them understand that X comes before Z in the alphabet. And for real, too bad they don't listen to you, and you are able to make them pay for it by using your traps in a unique fashion. Proceed with caution. Male Victor. If this is what Factory was supposed to be originally, then it's sure as hell a downgrade. You like to sit in your own drones until someone comes along and tries to kill you. Does it work? Barely. It's random, just like the chances of you spawning a player in Team Deathmatch. Oh wait, that's not you anymore. Haha! Go figure elsewhere. Nailed it. You thrive on gaining the most annoying kills in the server. The tiny bullets are hell on earth. The only chance others have against you is if you are swarmed by players or drones. You are often a target, as everyone hates your bullets. Streamliner. Barricade is your arch nemesis. You want a reason to exist, so you wage war with your enemy. You provide propaganda to everyone showing how much better you are than Barricade. No one really takes you seriously though, so you are left with your own choice. Either prove your worth, or disintegrate into the darkness. Mortar. You were one of the most casual players. It didn't matter if you were trying or not, you could simply cruise through the realm of the game and not worry about anything. Until you also got nerfed. It's like you're a wiser artillery. Maybe you're not a bitch after all. You're not as good as you once were though. Constructor. Ladies and gentlemen, the true Mega Trapper. You play a mixture of offense and defense. All you need to do is click on the corners and edges of your field of view and just click. Perhaps some will not be suspecting a moving trap for multiple seconds. Also, we all know you venture in portal mode and place down traps at the entrance. Don't deny it. the Master Troll. Cruiser. The only thing you're cruising is you being rare meat. How can this be viable? How can this be useful? You look like Twin's deformed baby. At least Twin Tag had a function. What about you? Jewel. For some reason, this is a tank. Everyone forgets about you until they don't. You often fight against Musket to see which is better. This is basically the twin versus triplet of Horacio, except there is usually a clear winner. Spoiler alert, it's not you. Auto Spawner. This looks like a parent with 4 disobedient children, except this said parent is using aforementioned children as a weapon for war. Definitely not Father of the Year material. If the auto turret was its voice, it clearly fails. This feels like a dysfunctional family. Do you need assistance? A counseling session, perhaps? Trevor. Would I call you an improvement? Hardly. Your only improvement is ramming. However, you tend to mock the good name of a trapper. You venture with 5 of your other friends who are all trappers just to troll and annoy the hell out of everyone else. You are at least able to find a way to kill players, but the way you gain kills is outright dirty. Auto Build. Someone is just mocking the idea of tank upgrades now. Every time there's a new auto tank, someone dies inside. At least it's on a tank that actually needs it. Too bad you still cannot fix it. Too bad, punk! Surfer. Incredibly obnoxious, just like Fighter. The side drones are rather frustrating to deal with. You as a whole like to act revenge on tanks that deserve it, especially Overlord and Booster, provided if you can pull it off. 500 different builds, and many of them fail. You and Fighter are not as strong as you think you are. The ego both of you show is flattened when you suicide dive into a hybrid or Annihilator tank. Slow down and take a breather. See? It's not very hard, is it? Pathetic. Architect. One of the few tanks with also interesting traps, except they are more used to piss off everyone else. You can even ram. You can imitate a real building crashing down on a player, and that makes them die in the process. For some reason you are considered an outcast, and you take your frustrations out in any way possible. The Eagle has landed. An underrated tank when you're not ramming. The main barrel is not as strong as the destroyer, but is still strong enough to obtain a decent amount of kills. Eagles generally know how to survive, but is sadly bested by much stronger tanks. Conqueror. This looks good on paper, but the only thing you're conquering is the mastery of fleeing from battle, and perhaps maybe just able to kill someone. If only you knew the ability of tank reversing, perhaps you would be a much stronger tank. Too bad most of you suck, even when you use it. Bent hybrid. While this is a hybrid, it's not the hybrid everyone knows. Players only use this because they cannot use hybrid properly, or act like this is better or worse than the other. Regardless, players that use this are at least quite skilled to an extent, still not any more or less likable than the actual hybrid, and people still avoid them as much as possible. Be more approachable! Necromancer. Perfectly balanced. An indestructible force when used correctly, but an easy target when exposed without any drones. Many people will joke about you and how you are still not any better than Overlord. However, this Necromancer improvement surely makes them run for their money. Perhaps in a certain world such as this, Necromancer is superior to Overlord. Not in Maze though, it still sucks there. Necromancer, the true embodiment of tank development. You are still made fun of for obvious reasons, and certain players prove this by playing this tank horribly. Oh well, you cannot have everything, can you? Triple shot. This is how the triple shot should have been. However, this is only used for challenges just like the original, so in reality, who really cares? Was the effort really worth it? No one truly mains triple shot, it's just fodder for better upgrades. Move along here. Skimmer. The only reason why you are back to where you are originally is because you cried so hard and most likely prayed to the gods above to turn you back into what you once were. Luckily for you, it worked. Now you can stop causing a ruckus with your cacophony. Shut up! You have nothing else to talk about. You were never interesting in the first place until you got changed. And even then, you were not interesting at all. Overdrive. The biggest memester of DAPO gained an upgrade, but the upgrade is not what we expected. While more drones help, it is difficult to kill. It is difficult to use both traps and drones. What was needed for the tank turned out to be not as good as it was planned. Now those memes are dead, and the desire for a greater tank has now been destroyed. Hey, this is what we all wanted. Now we cannot complain. Feel free to complain in DAPO though. Bent double. 2 triple shots acting like a twin flank and you get this abomination. At least it's the improved triple shot, not the garbage one from DAPO. No matter, all it is a tank pretending to be cool and pretending to be good. Any pentashot could play on cruise control or an AI could play it. This is a disaster. Just like the players that use it. This is really just a machine gun that got so angry that it didn't have a giant ball of death that it became a pounder, with fast reload but not as strong as a destroyer, extreme belligerence in the face of the enemy. Everyone wonders why you have not died of a stroke or a heart attack. Calm yourself. Spawner. 4 minion drones is all you need, right? Who needs an upgrade? Who needs a factory? All you really need is a lesser tank with a harder challenge, or an upgrade path to factory instead. Whichever works, it doesn't change a thing about you. Twister. Error 404, server not found. Actually, not quite. You just make the game slow enough and don't realize it. You are also used for crowd control. You are also the DAPO version of Skimmer, except you actually had an upgrade and had your name change. Maybe things didn't turn out badly for you after all. Auto double. Fast, nimble, and somehow strong. Twin Flank wishes it had your credentials. Too bad it doesn't. You are still not the strongest tank, so maybe you should think twice before trying to ambush any tank with your speed. Slow down, soldier. Machine Gunner. I don't think you care about kills. You just want to create a giant wall of bullets to frustrate everyone else, especially in any maze mode. Almost infinite defense, no offense. You rely on opponents being trapped or running straight into you just to die in the process. You almost never gain any kills otherwise. Rifle. What is a rifle in this game? All it is a glorified sniper with smaller bullets. Feels like a downgrade, to be honest. Are you here to mock the sniper? Do you have any other plans involved? Are your bullets stronger? You don't know. It's like you're clueless about everything. Cyclone! This is the true Luigi. Step aside, Octo Tank, though it's just as good. Your main purpose is to spawn multiple cyclones to lag the server to the point that it crashes, because you have nothing else better to do than to ruin the game for everyone else. You are often in the middle of the map or in an area of team deathmatch where obstacles are for no reason other than to lag the server. You need to be punished to the fullest extent of the balls! Hexa Trapper. From Hexa Tank to Hexa Trapper. Just because you have an auto turret doesn't mean you're good. You are often meat if you are not with multiple players. The only trap you commit is when you decide to ram and not use it properly. Booster. Listen here, you little shit. You have become the most obnoxious tank in the entire game. Far worse than Diepio. It's like you sold your soul to Satan to increase your salt, toxicity, and the power of the tank. Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to see you. Everyone hates you. Your only saving grace is that you occasionally F22 into a player and give them score. Even then, you are still incredibly toxic. You turn to this tank when someone kills you fair and square and decide to suicide into them, ruining their score. You drink so much salt that you have a heart attack whilst playing. You don't care. You never cared. You only play to cause a misery to others because you are a misery to yourself. You take your pain out on others instead of walking away. You are pathetic. You make MG Spin to Team look like a viable way to play. You have become just as bad as Overlord, if not arguably worse. Even as a bullet booster, you are anarchy. You are suffering. You are the devil's child. You will never rest. You will never stop. You will never be forgiven. Predator. The master of the yeeting can no longer yeet by stacking those bullets. Here, the effectiveness of stacked bullets is not as strong. You are better off not doing so. Bringing the bullets closer together does help, but at the same time you better aim carefully. The extra view range does not seem as strong as it once was, and you as a whole are not as strong as you used to be. However, you keep a level head, and you work with what you have. You know your strengths and weaknesses, and you use them to your advantage. The calmest player to ever exist. Musket. There is something strange about you. You are not the 16th century rifle that we all know and see. What are you? This is a mysterious tank with high bullet speed and high range. It's like you operate in the shadows until you find yourself in the middle of battle. I think we all better stay away from you. Auto Assassin. Surprisingly decent at the game, but that doesn't come with drawbacks. This is one of the major arrogant players in the game. The auto bullet gives others a harder time when facing you. This is certainly an improvement than the forgetful assassin. This is far better, and in return, you are slightly better. Too bad you are not as likable as you think. Bulwark. Half bullets, half traps. That's the only way to describe it. It generally cannot be described in any other way. Or it's like if Twin Flag had a change of heart and decided to use traps instead. Nobody knows if this is a good idea or not. This is just a tank that exists to see if it works. Either way, death is all you face. If only you were more popular. Poacher. The only thing that's being poached is you. Whenever you do get good moments, they are ruined by some Overlord or Hybrid that has something to prove. Even if this is a better improvement to Hunter, the drones appear to be just as useless as your desire to kill. Spike. Your behaviour is far different. You prefer to be useless, especially in team modes. By messing around with the spike bounce and not really doing anything at all, you are a huge liability in those modes. You are actually the weakest smasher tank. More body damage, but everyone else is faster than you, and speed is usually better than body damage. You have fallen from grace, and it's all your fault. Crop Duster. A minigun with drones. That's about it. You think you're just as strong as the bullet spam tanks, but you're not. Good thing you have speed, otherwise you would end up incredibly useless on the battlefield. Auto Smasher. At first, you were terrible, even in here. Then, auto turrets got buffed, even though the AI targeting is still sometimes terrible. Now you are far better than the absolute failure of the DPO version. These auto turrets are definitely not to be underestimated. You can juggle both ram and bullet well. The failed experiment that was in DPO has now become a legitimate tank. If Auto Smasher had a different kind of buff in the original version, it wouldn't have gotten the roasting that it deserved. All's well that ends well. For you, at least. Minigun. Not enough bullets, not enough firepower. Must ram instead. What is with all these lower tier tanks and ramming? This just proves that you are also a terrible tank and probably a terrible player. Bushwhacker. You're either good at surviving or are just terrible. Other snipers outshine you. Many times you try to ram because you fail to snipe properly. Perhaps this is just an act and you're actually good. You at least can defend yourself in some way with these traps, but it's not enough sometimes. You better be prepared for battle. Factory. Who cares? You don't even do anything. You just stroll around and let the drones do the work. You're a major step down, even if you are still good. You play on autopilot. You are like if Pentashot was an autonomous tank with its own minions. You are that easy. You're lucky that you are still able to be used properly and the drones are somewhat decent at attacking players. Otherwise you would be an absolute mess through and through. Run along now with your drones and go to sleep. Sprayer. Your bullets are much stronger than expected. You are also faster than expected. Perhaps you are not to be underestimated. While it may be an improvement, put this in a typical server and you will most likely underperform in battle. In this game that it's in, it's a much different environment and you have trouble getting used to it. Trap Guard. Nobody really cares about this tank. It's one of those dumb tanks that players rather ram with, making a mockery of it. If a Bushwhacker or Bomber didn't exist, neither would you. That's your only purpose deep down. Captain Falcon. Mixing Booster and Ranger. The idea of this is good in theory, but generally underperforms. In the end, you prefer to ram instead. Most Falcons that try to use bullets end up dying rather quickly or are unable to use the tank properly. It's not an easy tank, and you would rather use Ranger or Fighter instead. Hybrid. The strength of the hybrid comes from the ambush. The closer you are, the stronger the bullet. The faster your bullet, the stronger your bullet is. You keep this in mind. You have become the ultimate opportunist. This is what makes you slightly stronger than the original in certain situations. You are more of a close-range tank because of the mechanics of the game. Do you think you're better than you were before? You never know. You're too busy making everyone angry that they suddenly die to you, whilst they bitch and complain to their friends that their high-score game got ruined by you. Congratulations, you make everyone cry. Scepter Trap. This is a huge disappointment. Why? First, you have Octotank. Why not have Octotrapper? That's an absolute shame. Now there's only 7 barrels instead of 8. There's one thing to say about you. Disappointment. Honestly, at least Hexa Trapper has a fairly strong auto turret. What about you? Nothing but a disappointment. Too bad for you. Sidewinder. These bullets have high penetration, but that doesn't stop you from being targeted. You often sit in the back like a skimmer or a twister would do, especially if you have enough bullet speed. Not the best tank as a whole, and the players who use this get more than what they bargained for. Overlord. Well then, it doesn't get any better for you, does it? You are just as bad as the original Overlord. Those drones are much faster and much more of a pain. You know that nobody likes you, but you wear that as a badge of honor. Most of the time you do not care about score. You come back to kill again and again. You come back as Overlord every time because you are bad at everything else. It's a good thing you are able to be killed much easier. And out of every other tank from Diepio, you deserve it the most. Get out of here. And that's all of the Horacio tanks that I included. Just a reminder, I did not include all 101 tanks. As of recording this, in the game, I only included Horacio tanks, with a few Diepio tanks that have had a major significant change or are incredibly relevant to Horacio. Now, if you take this seriously, you are probably a booster. If you are not a booster and you take this seriously, just stop. It's meant to be a fun joke. Don't get too angry. Don't get too offended by this. Just play whatever tank you want. It doesn't matter. And with that, I'm done. Peace out.
Perfectly balanced and indestructible force when used correctly, but an easy target when exploded by any drones. Many people will talk about you and how you are so not able to be better than any Overlord. However, this Necromancer revolution makes them run for their money, perhaps in a certain way, such as this. Necromancer superior to Overlord. Not in maze though, it still sucks there. Necromancer, the true embodiment of tank development. You are still made fun of for obvious reasons, and certain players prove this by playing this tank horribly. Oh well, you can't have everything, can you?